Or is it going to spin? Seem to be in. See whether you can see me. Am I here? Oh. Oh, there we are. Okay, Andrea sees me. Hi, Andrea. Glad somebody sees me. Pardon me, I'm eating my dinner real fast. Good. Everybody hear me okay? Am I audible? That's true, I am there but not here, but here but not there. Alright, so let me see. We'll wait for folks to come in. I'm assuming you can hear me. I'm just going to type this in. Okay, thank you, Candy. Alright. So, the funny thing is that the last time we did this, which I guess was 2 weeks ago, we actually made it all the way through the 9 sacred herbs up till the very, very end. I'm just going to review the 9 sacred herbs. There were 3 from the woods, 3 from the fields, and 3 from the gardens. The 3 from the woods are dogwood, elder, and wintergreen. The 3 from the fields are Fingergrass or cinquefoil, catnip, and ground ivy. And then the 3 from the garden are horehound, sage, and thyme. But we had this one herb in particular that is considered very highly important to the Deitsch. And that includes Christians and heathens, and that is mugwort. Mugwort are Artemisia vulgaris, called Odifra in Deitsch, which I'll type into the chat screen here. So that's mugwort. Or Odifra means the old lady. And the thing about that is it's very odd that it's not actually listed as one of the 9 sacred herbs, yet it is considered to be extremely high, extremely sacred. So, for instance, when I was in my herbalism class, my herbalism instructor, Susan Hess, said, think of how important white sage is to most Native Americans. That is how mugwort is to the Deitsch. Now, medicinally speaking, it's good for cattle cough, expulsion of worms from humans and cattle. It's a digestive herb. His traditional use was a treatment for malaria. It was used for wounds, specifically against bullets, and also the wounds sustained in childbirth. They had many uses in foot baths to ease the pain in the feet, but also to cure the fungus of the toenails. It is very contraindicated for pregnancy, so if somebody's pregnant, they should not really go near mugwort smoke or anything. And it increases the bile flow in the body. Now, where it really stands in for us, it's a highly magical herb associated with the goddess Hola. Now, many of you are well aware that there is a verbot, or a ban, or a taboo on burning of elderbush. Elder berries can be burned in some circumstances. Elder flower can be burned, but every other part of the elder bush is not supposed to be burned. Mugwort is the stand-in for burning elder. So when we wish to burn incense or something to Hola, it is elder that we use. Now, it is also a dreaming herb, and this one I can say from experience. What my Brockery instructor had told me is that it'll take your dreaming up a notch. So if you really don't remember your dreams very often, you'll remember your dreams. If you remember your dreams, you'll have vivid dreams. If you have vivid dreams, you'll have lucid dreams. If you have lucid dreams, you'll have epic dreams. And if you have epic dreams, you'll have episodic dreams, can actually go from chapter to chapter. And I've experienced some of these right up close. And it is a very good dreaming herb. Actually, even just a bit of mugwort smoke in ritual can actually affect my dreams sometimes. It is used for cleansing, smudging, and purifying. It is our primary house blessing herb. So when we do our house blessing, it is usually mugwort is by itself, but sometimes we will also include red cedar and juniper. But since I'm allergic to juniper, I don't really, I don't tend to go for that one. Let's see, what else about mugwort? It grows all around here in Pennsylvania. It seems to like disturbed lands on the edge of woods, but if you're driving along on the highways around here, you can see it growing everywhere. As a matter of fact, I'm going to pick a leaf here in a second and show you one of the things one of the ways to be able to tell it. It's placed in the shoe to ease walking over long distances, and it's carried to prevent attack by human or animal. And it is also said to be worn to increase attractiveness. I'm going to grab a mugwort leaf for those of you who don't know what it is. All right, so this is the mugwort that's growing out in my front yard. Let's see if you can see it. It kind of looks very spiky and everything, but sometimes the leaves are a little bit more roundish, and people sometimes confuse the leaves of chrysanthemum with it. But the primary difference is if you turn the leaf over, you'll notice that the color is like a whitish silver. So the green on the front does not match the color on the back. And it has a distinct aroma or smell that once you smell it, you'll actually never forget it. What's the name of that? The volatile oil. Thujone, right? Yeah. Thujone is the essential oil, and one of the active volatile ingredients within it, and it smells very stark. So anyway,
Same thing in absinthe.
What?
Absinthe.
Yeah, it's in absinthe. Well, it's in which is also wormwood. Yeah. It is the same ingredient that's in absinthe, and
That's what made it illegal.
yeah, that's what made absinthe illegal. But yet it's still here in mugwort. I guess it's also in sweet anise to some proportion, and some of the other things in Artemisia family.
You don't want to buy too much.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it can be toxic in large volumes. But so anyway, before we go on any further, does anybody have any questions about that? Anything here related to that? So again, we use this in our rituals sometimes, as incense. Sometimes I will actually have like water from Hexenkopf that's just has some of these leaves infused into it. And Sophia, thank you for putting the link up to the mugwort and traditional usage from our Planza Heilkunst site. And pretty good. All right, so if there's no questions about that, the topic that people asked for next was Dingsege. All right, so Dingsege. Dingsege, I'm going to type this in. Dingsege equals the thing blessing. A Sega is technically a spoken blessing, as opposed to a, well, we don't really do blood rituals, but that is the difference within us, within Urglaawe. But the thing blessing is when we do our business. Let's see. We do our business meetings, and actually we do our Distelfink does our elections. Different freeholds don't have to do things at the same time that we do them, but it's we honor Tsi or Tyr that day, and Forsets are Forseti, and a few other deities are associated with justice. Now, one thing I should actually mention, this could be a topic for next week, is it used to be that once Vonnetzeit ended, we didn't have another ritual up until Dingsege. And we oftentimes pair Dingsege and Midsummer, or Summer Offong as we call it, because they're, in time they're within a few days of each other. But Okay. Oh, and wearing it to be more attractive, would you make an oil? You could infuse an oil of mugwort, yes. Some people just refer to just wearing it like on your lapel. I've never actually really seen anybody do it other than wearing it like in the lapel or like maybe as like a what do you call it? Like not really a crown, but like, it's just like put in the hair like when people fashion, sort of like we do it in somewhere off on. We fashion like a what's the word I want? The English word. Like a crown. I don't know, like the midsummer crowns with the flowers and everything in them. Um, so, but yeah, you could make an oil of it. It's not that hard to do. Just infuse it with let's see, a good oil, good carrier oil that would go with mugwort. Try apricot. Apricot oil and mugwort, I think, have a good scent together. I've actually put those two together. If you really like apricot oil, try chamomile and apricot oil. That's one of my favorite blends to use in some of my salves. Right now, harkening back over to Dingsege. We've since inserted these observance of the desecrated shrines, which I didn't put as a topic, but I probably should have. And maybe we'll talk about that at the next one. Because in doing research on different topics, I kept coming across Christian references to Saint Boniface and his conversion of the Germanics, often against their will, and naming several deities, many of whom we don't really know too well, and so that has actually had been put in for a while. And I think maybe next week I'll talk about the observance of the desecrated shrines, because that actually is one that's catching on, even outside of Urglaawe and outside of Germanic heathenry, to other. It's one of those things where all of the people of different pagan traditions can sort of relate about one thing, and that is that we have all historically had been on the wrong side of the church, and in many cases ended up with this. How shall I say it? Well, these crimes against our religion, crimes against conscience, and everything conducted against us, and that kind of carries today into the whole concept of religious privilege, where certain religions are able to exert themselves and the practitioners are able to do what they want in any public forum or whatever, while others are hampered from doing the same thing. And so I'll talk about that. That'll be Urglaawe like 10, I guess. So anyway, so at Dingsege, one thing that we started doing within Distal Think is we started trying to make sure that folks had their final documents in order. We've lost several people over the years who did not have their final documents in order, mostly because they were very young and were not expecting anything to happen. And because of that, there was question about how they should be buried, how their body should be handled, all that stuff. And in some cases, it was kind of contentious. In other cases, it was kind of it was okay because the family understood. The very first case was actually 2011, when my kinsman Dan passed away tragically in an accident, and he was in his early 20s. He had no expectation whatsoever of passing away. His parents found out at his Christian service that he had converted to Urglaawe, and his mother and father, really, they're wonderful people. And I just remember talking to his mother. She knew he was doing something with me. I was his Deitsch teacher at Kutztown, and he was learning some stuff about Braucherei with me and everything. But she really didn't know that there was actually this whole conversion involved. And but when I told her, I just remember her kind of like patting herself like right here and saying, "Oh, this warms my heart." And the following week, much of their family came to our memorial service for Dan, which actually lasted, I think, 8 hours. It was 8 hours long, and but nobody was bored, nobody was tired or whatever, and they brought his ashes with them, and they really celebrated alongside us. Then a year later, when it came time to inter the ashes, they had their Lutheran pastor put it in, but they asked me to be the final one to say words over it and to close it. So they recognized the combination of the funerary services being for both the living and also for the needs of the deceased. And so that was a lucky one. But we've had others where the family was already animately opposed to the religious choices of somebody, and because it was not in documentation anywhere, the they gave the exact kind of burial that the person would not have wanted to have happen, and pretty much edged us right out. So there are documents that are very important for everybody to have, and it's going to vary a bit state by state. But all right, those of you who have been to Sacred Space, which is it's a it's a big discussion conference in Maryland that takes place every year. This year was supposed to be combined with another one called Between the Worlds, but unfortunately, thanks to the COVID incidents, we could not actually meet. But every year we've been meeting for a death midwifery workshop. What happened was several years ago, somebody in Blue Star Coven had gotten sick and everything, and they actually saw the guy through all the way from his hospice to his death, which happened very quickly. But they were able to, because they had the documents and paperwork in order, they were able to control the body. They were able to wash him after he passed, and it was actually a very beautiful testament to their love for him. And as a result of that, we formed a death midwifery team at Sacred Space. Several of us have gone through the training, including Larry Goebel and Victoria Young, and I went through death midwifery training, each kind of with different aspects of it in mind. For me, the important thing was to know what was what, and to understand what documents I needed to have and other people needed to have as the leader of our group. Others feel more called to go and actually do the hospice work and to actually see the person through their sickness all the way to their death, including working with the family and everything. And others yet feel just like the call to just be supportive or whatever. Now, Andrea, you and I went to see that woman who was passing away down at Paoli Hospital, and that was something that was sorely needed also, is because there's not a whole lot of pagan or heathen clergy out there, and so sometimes when they need us, we're few and far between, or they don't even know how to get hold of us. So I try to make sure that we're known at least somewhat to area hospitals and everything, so that they at least know whom to call. Urglaawe does have a last rite, which I think it's actually in our in the files section of the main Urglaawe group, and it's actually can be applied by anybody. Doesn't necessarily have to be a Tziever or a God's person. But so anyway, the documents that came out of Sacred Space. We were really lucky during that year that the Blue Star folks shared their experience with us, because one of the people in their group is a funeral director in New Jersey, and so he was able to share some information as well. Now, the ironic thing is I own a cemetery, and the cemetery, still the last person who was actually buried there is my grandfather in 1989. But we do have several memorial stones up there, including the ashes of a couple people, and we need to still figure out some of the legal handlings. There's a lot that I don't necessarily even fully understand. If I die tomorrow, could I be put right in my own land there? Which theoretically I should be able to, but Andrea, this is one that Andrea Carpentier, she actually did this for me. It gave me a number for a lawyer, and I've been remiss in that, so I do need to follow up on that so we can find out what the actual rules are. But so by state to state, the 5 forms you really need to make sure you have are your do not resuscitate form. If do you want to be resuscitated? You want them to take heroic action or no? Your living will. If you don't have a living will, you should actually consider doing one, which is just as important as the will for when you pass away. Then there's the power of attorney financial and the power of attorney medical. Who do you want making those medical decisions for you at the end? How do you want the money to be handled? And who do you want to have access to your money while you're still alive and sick? Then the 5th one is the funeral designee. And the funeral designee is the one that I think most of us, I never heard of it until the Blue Star funeral director brought it up. That's actually assigning who is in charge of the disposition of your body. And so, like, when I did my documents last year, I made sure that I listed that I wanted an Urglaawe funeral because I do, and I know that Doug will take care of things, but I don't know, for instance, if something happens to both of us, or everybody around me or something, will my family actually observe what I have, unless I have it in writing in a document somewhere, will my family actually observe it? Grief and death do very strange things sometimes to people, and bring up a lot of unfortunate, sad feelings, and sometimes anger, and they may blame my conversion away from Christianity on something, and all that stuff. You just never know. So it's always better to have your documents in order. In Pennsylvania, we have an advanced medical directive that actually covers almost all this stuff, if not all of it. And I could probably post. I have a link to that somewhere. I think the link is actually open. It is. And check it open. Hopefully it doesn't take away where I am. Let's see, open a new tab. Having trouble copying right now. Well, I'll try to see if I can Command C. See if I can put it into the chat room window here. And the thing is, we actually try to that I just posted a link to UPMC. That is a PA Advanced Directive form, and a lot of different hospital groups or whatever have them, but they contain much of the same thing. And it's not a pleasant thing to do, but if you don't do it, you could end up with a lot of confusion for the people who remain behind you, especially if it comes to a difference in how religiously how the whole thing is handled. And this has actually happened way too many times, and every single person that it's happened with in our group has been younger than me. And I'm 54, and it's shocking sometimes. When they pass away, you're going through your own grief, so is the family, and then you're trying to sort through all these other things on top of it. So we always encourage people to get their documents together. Now, we in Distal Think are fortunate enough that usually we're able to get together at Larry's store, and he's a notary in New Jersey, so he can notarize folks' work right there. If people in Pennsylvania can't make it over to New Jersey, I'm a notary here in Pennsylvania also, and I can take care of it. In Maryland, Leo is a notary, and in Delaware, Jessica Shoemaker is a notary. So we have people within our extended community who are willing to and able to help. We can't actually advise on anything. Notary is just saying that that we witnessed the signature, and that you are who you say you are, etc. But most of these forms are actually fairly simple to do, and if I recall correctly, some of the advanced directives don't even actually require a notary, but we've done them anyway, just for good measure. Now, let's see what else. I know that somewhere along the way we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do about the cemetery, because several of us are going to end up there in one shape, or we're planning on ending up there one way, shape, or form. But I do need to contact a lawyer. It just seems that there's not that many lawyers of the particular types that we need in Pennsylvania anyway, who are particularly aware or pagan friendly or heathen oriented or whatever. If you have connections to folks like that, can you please pass the info along, because just sometimes searching and opening up a phone book and trying to figure things out is daunting by itself, and for people like me, that is actually sometimes enough for me to procrastinate. And that's not a good thing. But anybody have any thoughts about this so far? It's a fun topic, isn't it? I'm going to go back to some of these other things. Now, one of the things that I found to be not even necessarily a calling. I've actually resisted the calling to a degree sometimes. But many of you know that I started in Heathen Prison Services in 2011, and then it got bumped up to the Troth, I think, officially in 2015 or something, maybe 2016. It got fully bumped up, and but alongside of that has been which is still technically under distal think and never got moved up to the Troth, is a mental health services piece, and it's also a hospital visitation piece, which I have had to do, quite recently actually, and again, sometimes there's not enough knowledge about our religions. I actually just the other day spent quite a significant period of time speaking to a chaplain who had never heard of us at all, and at first it seemed like he was going to be a little bit hostile, but he actually took some notes and actually went out to my InReach sources and downloaded a few things, which I was kind of glad about. But one of the things that's a challenge for heathens and pagans of all stripes is them taking us seriously. All right, for instance, this has happened more than once, where we had a client in a mental health facility, and I've actually actively heard staff in the facility mocking that person for their religion. I think the worst one that I actually heard was referring to the client as Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and I was fortunate enough that I actually heard it. The client actually had told me that they heard various kinds of insults and slurs, and that caused a rift in trust where that client really felt very insecure, and that just made things all that much worse for that client's stay. And more recently, I've actually heard just the same kind of general thing where, oh, well, they're heathen, they're godless, so God's not going to bless that person. I'm like, we need to fight this ignorance as well, and it's. I'm glad when I'm there to be able to hear it, but by the same token, I almost flew off the handle with one of those things, because how's the client supposed to trust you if they don't, if they hear you saying things that are so insulting and so belittling, that it's just unprofessional, and it's absolutely abysmal. And I'm actually considering pushing for the firing or dismissal of one of those people. But anyway, I don't know if I'll be successful, but particularly when you start to go to some of these places that are Catholic run, but. So anyway, in hospital visitation, they've been a little bit better, particularly in some of the cases of the hospital visitation. I was the person's actual designated chaplain, and so they give you a little bit more of a leeway and respect there. The prisons actually tended to give me a lot of respect, but that took several years of learning and earning it. But until we actually make our presence known and have our documents in order, start insisting that our religions be taken seriously, we're going to be facing a lot of uphill battles sometimes. And so, Dingsege, if you don't have your documents in order, you might want to start to look into them for your state, find out what you need, get it done, take it to any notary. Doesn't have to be any of us down here, and then make sure that people. Somebody you really care about or you really trust knows where those documents are, so should anything ever happen, they're available to you. And let's see, boy, we're only halfway through, and I'm already covered all the stuff I really had. Let's see. Yeah. you shouldn't be in, and nobody should be in any position like that. But unfortunately, I sometimes hear teachers saying things right in front of the students that they shouldn't necessarily be saying. You know, I understand venting. I understand even a little bit of humor, but not within the earshot of the client. It's just disgusting, and and then the client can't trust them ever again. But let's see. So anyway, so since we're already here, all right. Something also came across this is unrelated to those topics. Something else also came across my plate this week. Um, that was Christian Ascension Day just passed, and I've noticed a lot of people talking about some of the traditions that are related to that. And I started looking into them because I was thinking, some of them are very odd, and some of them sound very pagan. And I wish people would stop messaging me right now. And one of them, which is a well-known one, I actually remember this, from when I was younger, is that there is a Verbot on sowing things, anything, on Ascension Day, and that anything that you sow that day will be, will fall apart, or it's will become bad luck, all sorts of things, which doesn't really sound particularly Catholic, and certainly not Lutheran or Mennonite in origin. So I started thinking about it. Thought, I bet you this is tied somehow to May Day and Vonnetzeit. And so I looked up. The earliest date that Ascension Day can fall is, April 30th. And April 30th is, of course, Vonnenacht or Walpurgisnacht. And so I started tracking some of this stuff down. It starts to seem as if that sowing ban actually really does have its roots in Walpurgisnacht. And which makes sense in a way, because, that's when Holle, from our perspective, Holle and Bertha are not the same goddess; they are sisters. From Deitsch lore, it pretty much says that, but that's when they're dancing winter away with all the awakening all the land spirits and the plants and everything, and it makes sense that you're not supposed to be sowing that night. But now that the ban goes beyond just sowing; it's a sowing, assembling, any sort of industrial task that requires putting things together, or and making sewing is thread, but it's also pushing it in. So you're not supposed to be. I asked somebody what about a puzzle? And can you build a puzzle? They were that's not something. They actually said no, but they said they didn't think it was necessarily the same as sewing. I was like, what if you're sewing for fun or knitting for fun? I don't know. The band's on knitting. It's fabric work and it's assembly. So if you're building, if say you're a gunsmith and you're trying to assemble a gun, that would actually be considered under the Verbot that particular time. So I think that this may be one of the things that the Christian lore actually kept alive, that we probably should make sure that we pull at least into our own lore again for the 30th of April, and that is on that night. We should probably not have any sewing or assembly work done. I think Cat Heath is already doing that as part of her taboo along. I think that somewhere in there, maybe on Walpurgisnacht, she may already not be doing that with sewing. So that could be another one. Hey Jacob, how are you? Let's see. So what else on? There's all sorts of other things that relate to May Day and gathering the dew and again, these things kind of survive the Catholic Church despite in many ways. You're supposed to be able to take the dew off of the grass on May Day, and you're supposed to be able to sprinkle it on your face to get rid of your freckles, because for some reason in past ages, people seem to think that freckles were something that you didn't want. I kind of miss the freckles that I used to have when I was younger. I never had that many, but it'd be kind of nice if I had some again. What are Shabbos rules? I'm not familiar with that, Jacob. I'll let him type it in when he gets a chance. But yeah, that's fun. Fun stuff with Ascension Day, keeping things alive. Now, Ascension Day, for those of you who are not familiar with it per se, it's called Himmelfaahrtschdaag in Pennsylvania Dutch, which means that's the day that Jesus was, ascended into heaven. And in the Mennonite and Amish communities, it is an extremely high holiday. It is actually a higher holiday than Christmas, and everything shuts down for that day. It's supposed to be an auspicious day to go fishing because apparently the fish are also, rising high and are similar to go to get caught. And then the next day is the next major holiday on the Amish Mennonite calendar is Pentecost, which is this next Sunday, into Monday, and they also shut down for that too. And Pentecost, that one, as far as I can tell, that one's pretty much stuck in the New Testament. It's not really pulling. Okay, that's kind of what I thought you meant, but it's yeah. But some of these things with Ascension Day are kind of funny. And all right, so let's see. So I pretty much covered everything I had in a much earlier time than I expected to. So let's see, what else can we talk about here? Actually, hold on, let me get something. All right. Book time. All right. This is The Belief and Superstitions of the Pennsylvania Germans by Edwin Fogel. Now, the teen pages in this are they're very illuminating because in here he talks about all sorts of pre-Christian roots to current practices in the Deitsch Himmelfaahrtschdaag. Current for him being in the 1900s, but they still apply. This was everything from the origins of certain cattle driving days to the colors of wedding dresses to the wedding days of Tuesday and Thursday, originally being in relation to Tiu or Duna. The best thing about that is that Amish Mennonite people still get married mostly on Tuesday and Thursday. Some get married on Friday, and the ones who get when they get married, they oftentimes use a little spell which I have here somewhere. Where is it? 1 second. This is a little bit of Amish magic. These are the swatches from the wedding dresses and the groom's tie, and they're bound together with little words holding the couple together. This essentially is brauerei, but it's Amish style. But the blue color also has its origins in fried or frig. Comes out of this one. And one thing I would love to know is whether that's where the something borrowed, something blue has its roots. I haven't had a chance to look into that yet, but it'd be fantastic if it did. But if you ever get a chance to get this book, it's actually pretty dang illuminating. And those the first 20 pages are fantastic. I just want to look something up here with see if they have anything in here about Ascension Day. Let's see. Unfortunately, my vision's getting really bad. Well, they have something down here about freckles, though. Let's see. Special days of the seasons? No. And the other one is the Proverbs of the Pennsylvania Germans. Now, the funny thing is there's a lot of Proverbs that aren't in here, a lot that I can recall myself, and there's other books that have this stuff in. Now, the really cool thing about this is that the author, Edwin Fogel, he doesn't shy away from some of this stuff with pagan origins. He and Alfred Shoemaker, they're Deitsch authors who actually have a lot of information in their books, particularly about Easter and Shoemaker's. Let me get that book. It's right, My Vision. As long as I'm talking about books, you got Alfred Shoemaker's Eastertide in Pennsylvania, and pretty much every single secular thing in American Easter comes out of the Pennsylvania Dutch culture, and ultimately is tied somehow to the pagan past. Let's see. Okay. Let's see what else can we let's look something up in here with. Let's see if they have anything about Ascension Day with the Proverbs. Ascension Day. Himmelfaahrtschdaag. Deitsch. Himmelfaahrtschdaag. Man, my vision is getting bad. I can't even read it. Now, look at that. You have no proverbs about that. That's kind of funny. Hey. So, alright, so we're way ahead of schedule for once. Alright, so those are 3 books that I would recommend that you can get if you want. Let's see what else. Yes, we can get the names of the titles of the books and authors in the comments. We'll get them up on the in the main Urglaawe group. And then another thing, if you are prone to research at all, another thing. Excuse you. Pennsylvania Folklife magazines, you know, their whole run has stuff of all sorts within it. I do a lot of research on these periodically. They're almost all online, available as free PDF downloads nowadays, which is pretty cool also. I'm one of the people who likes the paper. So another book that we might find interesting. Oh, come on, cats. All right. This is kind of interesting because I'm going to make sure I find the page before I start talking about it. Let's see. Where is it? Hope I have the right book here. I do believe this is the one where the Eviker Jaeger is first mentioned in wide. Where it is though. In one of these books, these like Reader's Digest books, they actually talk about Eviker Jaeger or the Eternal Hunter in like this big public book. It's not quite as detailed as our local myths, but yeah, I'll have to make sure that's the right one later. Sit there. What else? All right, so let's see what other books do we all have. For my research, I usually start out with Grimm's Teutonic Mythology, which is available on Google Books, books.google.com. I use the Stallybrass translation, and it's served us pretty well. A lot of times we can find some sort of connection between our lore and theirs. Here's another one that you might find interesting. Jacob, I think you might find this one. I think you might know about this one already. This is a Signs, Cures, and Witchery, which is very much about Appalachian and Appalachian, West Virginian, and Virginian hexerai. But this stuff's Deitsch is as Deitsch as the day is long. They had this video that goes with it. It's very poorly done video. As a matter of fact, I would say it's on the same quality that my YouTube posts are with these things because I'm kind of clumsy with this sort of technology, but this is there's a lot of stuff in here that's kind of cool. And in the video, you actually hear them speaking Deitsch, and it's kind of funny because when they speak in English, they have the West Virginia accent, but when they speak in Deitsch, their accent is exactly the same as somebody's from central Pennsylvania, and I think that's sort of funny too. Let's see what else. Let's see. What else do I have here? For those of you who are language inclined, this is a word atlas of Pennsylvania German. It's hard to get my left and my right oriented. Which shows out on maps the different usage of certain words in Deitsch, and which one's more prevalent in certain areas. And they're actually, the variants are sort of quite clear cut. I don't think I see some of these in here, but there is a difference between Berks County and Lancaster County. our variants are different. And my folks come up here from this area here in Carbon County, but there is a distinct difference in some of these variants, and that's why you'll see so many spelling differences, sometimes grammatical differences, but usually more so spelling, and sometimes actual words, which isn't so unusual because some people say bucket and some people say pail, some people say faucet and some people say spigot, and those same kinds of dichotomies exist in Deitsch as well. 1 second. This book, I think some of you might have, and it's not actually about the Deitsch, but comes from Germany, and quite honestly, there's a lot of stuff in here that is mirrored within the Deitsch culture. Is this witchcraft medicine book? It's actually pretty interesting. I find a lot of the same meanings and same kinds of carryovers from prior generations into the present in this book as exists within our own culture. That's kind of cool too. But what I say was the biggest German dialect influence. Technically, Deitsch falls into Rhine-Franconian, so it is a High German, West Central German language. Second to that would probably be Alemannic from Switzerland, because keep in mind that most Amish people and a great many Mennonites, their actual ethnic roots are in Switzerland. I mean, my father's side of the family, the Lushes, the Muslimans, they're Swiss, and Lush Alp is in Switzerland, and so that would be Alemannic. But the language itself is considered to be Palatinate German, which is Rhine-Franconian. Actually, hold on, you can find the whole pedigree here. 1 second. Wikipedia, for all its potential flaws, it actually has a pretty good article about the Pennsylvania Dutch language on it. Pennsylvania German language Wikipedia, and I'm going to copy paste the link in so you all can click it itself. Let's see, and on the sidebar of that, you'll see. Click the link, you'll see it'll list out some of the states. It'll say, native to United States and Canada, and then it'll list out various states. Ethnicity, Pennsylvania Dutch. Native speakers, 147,000. Although I think it's up to 350,000. I think at 350,000 is closer. And it's actually growing more. It's actually one of the most rapidly expanding languages in the country due to birth rates. But language family is Indo-European, Germanic, West Germanic, High German, West Central German, Rhine-Franconian, Palatinate German, Pennsylvania German. But that is not to say that there is not all sorts of input, from these other dialects, because, Schweinfelder communities tend to have a little bit more Silesian influence, and but also keep in mind that the 30 Years' War caused people to be moving all over the German lands before they even migrated out of out of there. So that's something else to keep in mind. Let me see, 1 or 2 more books, and then I know which one. I know exactly which one. Now this one is a love-hate relationship. All right, get my slides over that way. Pennsylvania German's an interpretive encyclopedia. Now, the issue with this one, is that the section on, find it exactly. Textile. The section on medicine, which is chapter 15, is written by David W. Kriebel, who is a pretty much a hardcore Christian. And throughout that entire section, he completely trashes Silver Ravenwolf, and he doesn't have so much nice to say about us specifically, either. He refers to us as what was it, valorizing the use of Deitsch. Uh-oh, what happened? Where did I go? Am I still on? What happened? Can you still see me? Okay, I seem to be on there still, but something happened to my... I'm having trouble playing this video. Okay, well, I can't see myself, so as long as I'm still here. Anyway, now I want you to know that Silver Ravenwolf has been trained as a Brocker, and it's quite clear from her Hexcraft book, and she violated absolutely no Verbots in creating all that stuff, and so I have a lot of respect for her. But this book absolutely trashes her, which is, I suspect there's a little bit of, how should I say, well, misogyny involved with some of that. He doesn't have such nice things to say about my Brockeri mentor or my herbalism mentor either. So other than that, the only reason I would actually recommend that this book, it has a lot of good info in the other areas, but when you're reading that areas, it also gives you an idea of what some of our challenges are, and that's an important thing for you to know. As time goes on, the more that we become out there and the more visible we become, the more likely it is going to be that we're going to take some hits from people. Silver Ravenwolf has been a very successful author. Whether you support her or not, it doesn't matter. I actually do. She's been very kind to us, and I'm actually, she sent some of her people our way to learn stuff, and I think that's wonderful. But just so you all know, not everybody who is interested in the Deitsch culture is necessarily interested or might actually be animately against anything that we have to say, because it kind of breaks the hegemony of the Christian community. So anyway, that being said, that's pretty much all I got. We got like a few minutes left for questions or whatever, if anybody wants to ask them. I haven't looked at the chat at the Urglaawe group. We need more topics if we're going to fill out this whole hour in the future. But somebody has to have something. Let's see. Can be on any topic. Doesn't have to be limited, except, please, no movies. Well, maybe Witness. All right, let's see what we got going on in our group here. Just check the questions thread just in case. And it's taking forever to open, as usual. Hey, at least the Urglaawe Live started tonight. Last time I had to do it on my phone. You love some Duna lore. I love Duna lore. All right, well, hold on. I got some Duna lore. 1 second. Okay, you love you some Duna lore. Well, here I can't tell if you can see it or not because I can't see myself on the camera, but this right here is a hens and, they call it hens and chicks in English. It's also known as a house leek, and if you can see it, this one actually fell off of the main plant today, and I'm gonna probably just let it set and start a new plant. This is the stuff that people plant even today on the roofs of their houses or their barns to prevent lightning strikes. and it is considered sacred to Dona, and so that is why it is put up there. So that's a little bit of Dona lore. Secondly, we really didn't make much fanfare this year about the frost giants attacks there at the night of the 12th, the night of the 13th, the night of the 14th, which translates to the day of the 13th, 14th, and 15th. We didn't really talk too much about that this year, mostly because I was involved in something else. I can't remember what it was, but that passed already. So we are now at May 15th. May 15th is considered our hard frost date. We are now able to plant everything outside. This translates pretty well across zones 5B to 7B, or 7A really. I'm in zone 7A here, and it's kind of funny because we actually had frost up in the Poconos near the cemetery on the night of May 14th, and then May 15th the temperature shot right up. This has actually been fairly consistent, believe it or not. So I guess our folklore is with that. But on the first night, on the 13th, when the wreathe docks the frost giant attacks, the Butsaman is supposed to, or the Butsaman army. I think the concept of all the Butsaman that are moving as an army is kind of interesting. But your scarecrows, they watch Duna fight and beat back the wreathe docks on the 14th. Duna trains the Butsaman to fight Fatsefera. And then on the 15th, the Butsaman, or the Butsaman army, takes over the fighting and the defending of the land itself. And so that's a little bit of Duna lore. What other Duna lore do we have going on here? The acorns by the window, pseudo. I think I already moved those. Might be here. I have to go upstairs to that. When you get strong winds or hurricanes coming, put acorns on your windows, on your windowsills, and that's supposed to keep the glass from shattering. That's another piece of Duna lore. And at that, I think it's close enough to 8 o'clock. But if anybody else has any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Next week, I think we'll have to talk about or whenever we do the next one, we'll have to talk about the observance of the desecrated shrines. And I'll share the wondrous book that goes along with that, so folks can do their own research. Some people think that the deities that they talk about might even have been made up just to make Saint Boniface, or as Ben Wagner calls him, Saint Funny Face, look good. But any other questions? It's a mellow night here, mostly because we just finished gardening. See. Looks like Sophia's on the ball with getting the links posted up. And all right. Okay. Well, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them on the group list. And we'll see. Might be next Sunday or 2 Sundays from now or whatever. But the observance of the desecrated shrines always falls on June 5th. So. Guess I gotta start talking about that one now. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much, and I will talk to you soon. Maxima Bessel.